You drive a brand new car off the lot, and before you even get home, it's worth about $5,000 less than what you just paid for it. That's not an exaggeration. That's not me being dramatic. That's just how cars work. And here's the problem. Your car loan doesn't care. You still owe every single dollar you borrowed. So now you're paying off $35,000 for something that's already worth $30,000. This gap between what you owe and what your car is worth? That's where a lot of people get stuck. And it took me way too long to understand why this matters so much. So let's talk about the car loan trap, how people fall into it, and more importantly, how to avoid it. First, we need to talk about something called depreciation. Don't worry, it's not as complicated as it sounds. Depreciation just means your car loses value over time. Everything you own loses value eventually, but cars, they lose value fast, like impressively fast. A new car typically loses around 20% of its value in the first year alone. That's 1/5 of the car's worth, gone. By year 5, most cars have lost about 60% of their original value. Think about that. You buy a car for $40,000. 5 years later, it's worth maybe $16,000. You lost $24,000 in value. Not because anything went wrong, not because you crashed it, just because time passed and you drove it. Now, this wouldn't be such a big deal if people paid cash for cars. You'd buy it, it would lose value, and that would just be the cost of having a car. Annoying, but manageable. But most people don't pay cash. Most people finance their cars. And that's where things get tricky. When you finance a car, you're borrowing money to pay for it. Let's say you buy a $36,000 car with a 6-year loan. That's 72 months, which has become pretty standard these days. Your monthly payment might be around $600, depending on your interest rate. Here's what happens in the first year. You make your payments like a responsible adult. You pay maybe $7,000 to $200 total. But a chunk of that goes toward interest, not the actual loan balance. So maybe you've only paid down $5,000 of what you actually owe. Meanwhile, your car has depreciated by about $7,000. See the problem? You paid down $5,000. The car lost $7,000 in value. You're now further behind than when you started. This is what's called being underwater on your loan, or having negative equity. It means you owe more than the car is worth. And a lot of people don't even realize they're in this situation until something goes wrong. Let me give you a real scenario. Sarah buys a new car for $32,000. She puts down $2,000 and finances $30,000 over 72 months. Her interest rate is 7%, which is pretty average right now. 2 years in, Sarah has paid about $14,400 in monthly payments. But because of how loan interest works, she's only paid down about $11,000 of her actual balance. She still owes around $19,000. Her car, though, it's now worth about $18,000. Maybe less, depending on the model. So Sarah owes $19,000 on a car worth $18,000. She's underwater by about $1,000. Not great, but not a disaster either. But here's where it can become a disaster. Let's say Sarah gets in an accident and her car is totaled. The insurance company pays her the current market value of the car, which is $18,000. But she still owes $19,000 on the loan. She now has to come up with $1,000 out of pocket just to pay off a car she can't even drive anymore. And that's a mild example. I've talked to people who were $5,000, even $10,000 underwater on their car loans. When their cars got totaled or they needed to sell them, they were stuck. They either had to come up with thousands of dollars they didn't have, or they rolled that negative equity into their next car loan, making the problem even worse. Which brings me to the next part of the trap, the trade-in cycle. Here's how it usually goes. Someone buys a new car. A few years in, they're underwater on the loan, but they're tired of the car. Maybe it needs repairs. Maybe they just want something different. So they go to the dealership. The salesperson says, "No problem. We'll pay off your old loan and roll you into a new car." Sounds great, right? Except here's what's actually happening. Let's say you owe $15,000 on your old car, but it's only worth $12,000 as a trade-in. That $3,000 gap doesn't disappear. It gets added to your new loan. So now you're buying a $30,000 car, but you're actually financing $33,000 because of the negative equity you rolled over. You're starting your new loan already underwater. And the cycle continues. This is how people end up owing $40,000 on a car that's worth $25,000. It's not because they're bad with money. It's because each trade-in dug the hole a little deeper. Okay, so what can you actually do about this? Option 1. Make a bigger down payment. The more you put down up front, the less likely you are to go underwater. If you can put down 20%, you're giving yourself a cushion against that initial depreciation hit. The car loses value, but you started with equity, so you're less likely to owe more than it's worth. I know. Not everyone has 20% lying around for a down payment. That's fair, but even 10% is better than nothing, and definitely better than those zero-down deals that sound appealing but put you underwater from day one. Option 2. Choose a shorter loan term. Remember Sarah with the 72-month loan? Part of her problem was that she was paying down the loan so slowly that depreciation kept outpacing her. If she'd chosen a 48-month loan instead, her payments would have been higher, maybe around $700 instead of $600, but she would have been building equity faster. By year 2, she might have actually been ahead of depreciation instead of behind it. Shorter loans also mean less total interest paid. A 72-month loan at 7% costs you way more in interest than a 48-month loan at the same rate. We're talking thousands of dollars in savings. Option 3. Buy a car that holds its value better. Not all cars depreciate at the same rate. Some brands and models are known for holding their value really well. Trucks and SUVs from certain manufacturers tend to depreciate slower than sedans. Some brands have a reputation for reliability that keeps their resale values high. Do a little research before you buy. Look up the projected resale value after 3 years, 5 years. It might influence your decision. Option 4. Consider buying used. This is the one nobody wants to hear, but it's the most effective way to avoid the depreciation trap entirely. That 20% first-year depreciation hit? Someone else already took it. A 2-year-old car with 30,000 miles on it has already lost the biggest chunk of its value. You're buying it at the bottom of the steepest part of the depreciation curve. Plus, certified pre-owned programs now come with warranties that are almost as good as new car warranties. You can get a car that's barely broken in for thousands less with similar protection. I drove a brand new car exactly once in my life. I loved that new car smell for about 3 months. Then I did the math on how much that smell actually cost me, and I've bought used ever since. Option 5. If you're already underwater, don't panic. You have options. You can keep driving the car until you've built up equity. Most loans cross over into positive equity eventually if you just keep making payments. It might take 3 or 4 years, but you'll get there. You can make extra payments toward the principal to speed things up. Even an extra $50 or $100 a month can make a meaningful difference. And whatever you do, try not to trade in while you're underwater. I know the new models are tempting. I know your car might be annoying you, but rolling negative equity into a new loan is how a bad situation becomes a worse one. One more thing worth mentioning: gap insurance. If you're financing a new car and you're worried about the underwater scenario, gap insurance covers the difference between what your car is worth and what you owe if it gets totaled. It's usually pretty cheap, maybe $20 to $30 a month. For people who are financing with a small down payment, it can be worth the peace of mind. So, here's the bottom line. Cars are expensive, and loans make them more expensive. The combination of fast depreciation and slow loan payoff means a lot of people end up owing more than their car is worth. That's the trap. But now you know how it works. Bigger down payment, shorter loan term, cars that hold value, buying used, and avoiding the negative equity trade-in cycle. These aren't magic solutions. They're just math working in your favor instead of against you. Next time you're at the dealership and someone's showing you a 72-month loan with zero down, you'll understand exactly what that deal actually means for your financial future. If this helped you see car loans differently, subscribe to Like Your 5. We break down money stuff like this every week. No jargon, no judgment, just the information you need to make better decisions. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.